Are you okay if I just add a sentence at the end of this that kind of just says like, while this doesn't solve all of our traffic problems, it's a good step towards getting there? Okay.
Yeah, that covers off that email.
Good evening, everyone. It's 1800 hours, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. So welcome to Monday, January the 8th, 2024, the first meeting of the new year. And we'll start off this evening with a land acknowledgement, and that's going to be read this evening by the deputy. So over to you, Deputy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The land on which the city of St. John, or Maniquest, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and Passamaquoddy, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let us pause and reflect.
Okay, I'll ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is the approval of minutes of December 11th, 2023.
Approval of the minutes of December 11th. I've got the Deputy and Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item.
Next is item 2.2, minutes of December the 18th.
Minutes of December 18th. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Redwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is the approval of the agenda, and we have two items that came from Committee of the Whole. The first one would be 17.1, COVID-19 policy statement, and 17.2, transfer of ownership, recycling totes.
Okay. You'll need a motion to approve the agenda. The Deputy and Councillor Lowe on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is item 4, disclosures of conflict of interest, if we have any.
Not seeing any. Next item.
Next is item 5, the consent agenda.
Over to you, Deputy, to read the consent item agenda, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move 5.1 through to 5.5, please.
Take a seconder. Councillor Sullivan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. I'm just going to say One Bayard Drive is going to be interesting for us. That's another good, more residential coming up. Potentially. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is members' comments, item
Members'
6.
comments. Okay, we'll take members' comments next. Councillor Ogden, over to you first.
I went to retirement the other night for city staff, Tanya Johnson and Jay Henderson, and I wish them the best. And I think it speaks volumes where two local people moved into the police department and advanced and did so well. And I think it says volumes about St. Johners, local St. Johners, and the expertise and the passion they bring to the city. And these were two great officers who just retired. And I want to congratulate them. The other thing I'd like to say is that I was part of the welcoming committee on the first day of winter for the first cruise ship ever to visit Atlantic Canada. And I tell everybody those people received a warm welcome like they'd never seen before. Hot chocolate, St. John High School choir. We got a tour of the ship by a captain from Italy, and he was hoping for snow that day. And the 3,000 crew members, 3,000 citizens were on board, and the 1,600 crew members were very, very warmly welcomed. and that's not necessarily the weather. But it was a really great day, and St. John made international news that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Redwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give my sincere condolences to family, friends, and community for the person who lost their life at the encampments this week. My deepest sympathies to everyone.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I want to wish a very happy 100th birthday to Margaret Gordon. Longtime South End resident, reached a century milestone just this past weekend. And it was great to celebrate alongside yourself, Councillor Lowe, and plenty of community members in ringing in a pretty important milestone. I also want to congratulate our very own Emma McPhee, who this will be her last day reporting with us here at City Hall, as she hides her head in some embarrassment, perhaps, for me calling her out. I just want to thank her for her years of dedicated local journalism. Local journalists make what we do here better. They tell the story from this table, and I think it tends to be a pretty important one. So I want to thank Emma for her service and wish her all the best.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Sullivan, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Actually, through you to our CEO, maybe you can pass my thanks along. My family and I joined the city family at the annual skate at Harbor Station this past weekend. And my wife and daughter and I, who haven't been on skates in forever, had a wonderful time. And just thank you to pass along to the staff who organized it, got the snacks, and to the kids who didn't kill us as they were zipping around the ice having a wonderful time. So, really important, as serious as things are in the work that we do, that we go out and have fun with our families. So pass that thanks along, please.
Thanks, Counselor. Great words. Counselor Killen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to echo Councillor Radwan's condolences to the family of a neighbor, a community member of St. John. And I came across this poem by St. John poet Eldon Nolan that I wanted to share. So it's called Canadian January Night. Ice storm, the hill, a pyramid of black crystal down which the cars slide like phosphorescent beetles, while I, walking backward in obedience to the wind, am possessed of the fearful knowledge my compatriots share, but almost never utter. This is a country where a man can die simply from being caught outside. So I read that happenstancely yesterday and really think that, that was written in the 60s. We've always known this about the land that we live in. And so we need to really amp up our advocacy. And there is a vigil tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at King Square for anybody who wants to go give remembrance and offer any condolences and thoughts to the community. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Norton, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just two quick things. One information item that the Greater St. John Sports Hall of Fame is accepting nominations. So if you know people in the community of sport or recreation that have made an indelible difference in our community as it relates to that, they are accepting nominations, and there's no shortage of those in our community that can be nominated in that arena. Second, just a quick thanks to City of St. John staff, whether that's through municipal operations, engineering, a number of departments and spaces within City Hall and all of that, and New Brunswick Southern Railway and the JDI group of companies that have erected the gates on Sand Cove Road. That investment is a massive quality of life investment that will continue down onto Sherbrooke, and noise whistling cessation in that area is greatly appreciated by the residents of Fundy Heights and furthermore. So thank you for that, and we look forward to continuing our work in that area. But I just wanted to say thank you to our corporate citizens and the folks that call St. John home in the West Side for bearing with us as we get that good work done, and the people that are actually doing the work out there on some pretty cold days. So we watch them, we appreciate them. You're seen and you're thanked. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll just say briefly that over the holiday season, in addition to the 44-year-old, I'll say young man who lost his life in the fire the other night at the encampment, which is very sad and very tragic. And I do send, on behalf of all of council, our condolences out to his family. We also lost John Hickey over the holiday season, and Councillor Hickey's uncle. And so to his 10 siblings and his wife Nancy, we send our condolences. It was quite the wake and the funeral, but that's no surprise when you have 10 siblings and they all are married, and you have 10 spouses and plus your own. So there was a lot of people there. It was quite the event. Very sad for the family. It was very sudden. And we also lost Dr. Mary Patricia Donaghy Gould, who is your former mayor, Don Darling's mother. And according to Dawn, she had been diagnosed only about 2 weeks before. So that was very, very quick and very sudden. That's always difficult for the family as well. So to Dawn and his family and his relatives, we send out our condolences as well. And I guess we often don't realize that the people that surround us and support us are gifts and in our lives, and we don't always get to keep those gifts. So it's always difficult when we lose someone. On happier notes, Emma, congratulations. Moving on. You've been great to work with. I think you've been, for all of us, I think you've been very true blue with our words. I've never seen my words misinterpreted or whatever in the paper, so I do thank you for that. That's always, for people in politics, that's always very important. So I'm very grateful for that. I was over to Margaret Gordon's party as well. She turned 100. She looks amazing. She looks about 80. She's as smart as a whip. And we all wanted to know what she's using on her skin. And she said, Donna, I use Pond's. So I'm going out to get a case of that stuff. And she had a full room of people there. It was Councillor Hickey and Councillor Lowe and I. We went over to her birthday party. And then I ran over to the Arts Centre to say goodbye to Suzanne Hill because she's moving, I think, to be closer to her children and grandchildren. So she's been a significant artist in the city of St. John over many years. And so we say congratulations to her on her big move. I think she's off to Ontario, and to Margaret on her 100th birthday. And that's it for me. So next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item is 12.1 on the agenda, and it's an update from the CAO on select catalytic projects.
CAO, over to you, please.
Good evening. For the catalytic projects update this evening, I'll be brief as there's not been a lot of change since just before the holidays. The one infrastructure project I'll touch on is the one that's active, just out near City Hall here, Fundy Key, and the gathering space, Idoli, Makahamak. So a detailed status update was provided in mid-December, but since then the contractor has continued work. They're currently constructing the retaining walls along the north side of the tidal steps, and these walls will shape the lookout areas overlooking the tidal steps. And a water tank is being installed as well that will supply water for the rock pool feature located at the top of the tidal steps. And mechanical electrical work continues along with the concrete brick pavers. And along Harbor Passage, they're beginning to install some of the exterior features like furniture and decking, and the amphitheater continues, and the wooden handrail installation has started along the Harbor Passage as well. And the structural framing for the enclosed patios has also begun. So there's lots of work still underway thanks to the cooperation of the weather. And with respect to the private sector development at the Fundy Key site, the developer continues to advance their project. Multiple cranes remain on site, and their plan is to continue driving those foundation piles. And they're estimating it'll be about an additional 4 weeks, weather depending. And once that is completed, they'll move right into construction of the concrete foundations. So with that, Your Worship, that concludes my brief verbal update.
Okay, so any questions for the CAO? I'll take a motion to receive for information. The deputy and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 12.2, City of St. John Energy Action Plan, ACT St. John Pathway to Net Zero.
Okay, Mr. Yamin, are you introducing this for us? Excellent. Come on down.
Okay. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I am very pleased to present to you tonight the Community Energy Action Plan, or what we call it, ACT SJ. First, I would like to thank the many staff, council members, our consultant, Sustainability Solution Group, St. John Energy, various community group and stakeholders across St. John, as well as the residents for their time and effort to help with the development of ACT SJ, which took over 1 year. ACT SJ is St. John's response to the climate crisis and its commitment to transition to net zero emission by 2050. Climate change is one of the most threat to our world, planet, and the consequences of doing nothing are significant to our community, our world, as well as our future generations. ACT SJ is an ambitious and challenging plan, which will require complete involvement and buy-in by the residents, various stakeholders, utility, businesses, industry, government, to implement the strategies and achieve the expected environmental, social, and economic outcome. The community benefit of the implementation of the plan are significant and will help transform our community. To fully implement ACT SJ and achieve net zero, we need a massive transformation in how we produce and consume/manage energy as well as other consumption. We need to green our transportation system, building, industry, increase climate change awareness among ourselves, as well as require new policy, bylaw, regulation, and incentives. Most importantly, we need to work collectively as a community and as well as globally, having one agenda, one goal. We may disagree or agree on the very strategy or the pathway, but our goal and focus should remain the same. Now I would like to introduce Ewell Herbert from SSG to present. We're lucky to have Ewell here with us. He's an international recognized expert in climate mitigation and adaptation with 2 decades of experience. He has worked on over 50 communities planned across North America and served as a project lead on almost 100 projects, including the one high-profile project like the City of Toronto Transform TO. Ewell is an active participant in the United Nations Framework Agency on climate process, has led model development for the International Energy Agency and was a fellow of Project Drawdown, an ambitious initiative to model 100 global solutions to climate change. I would like to hand over this to Mr. Rupert. Thank you.
Yul, welcome. This is a very exciting project that we've got on the go here. It's impressive, and there's a lot of reading in there.
Apologies for that, Your Worship.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here. I was here, I think, a year ago in a snowstorm for a community meeting, which was a really fun meeting, I think, for all of us. So you can see how much work has gone in since in the extensive paper document, which I think was distributed to everyone. And I think this does represent the state of the art in terms of climate action plans for cities. I think you have something quite special here, and that really is a testament to the expertise in this community and the knowledge on this issue, which is not the case in every city. So I'm going to give you a very quick overview.
Yeah, I think we've got like 160 some pages of this this document, which is all good because I mean it is very fulsome, and I like that about it. But there is a lot. It's very interesting, great reading. So turning it right over to you.
Okay. Well, the consolation is a lot of it's charts.
Yes,
so
that's true.
That may be some help. Okay, so what this is a Community Energy Action Plan. It was developed with support from the province and also St. John Energy, who are particularly involved in the process. It is a pathway to get to a net zero target. A very detailed pathway, as you will see from the document. It involved extensive community input and detailed financial analysis. So this is the agenda that I will take you through. The pathway, the process, the engagement that we undertook, the modeling results, implementation, and recommendations, which I'll pass back to Samir. So just quickly about SSG, we've been working in this area for about 20 years. We're a workers' cooperative. I'm actually based in Tatamagouche, Nova Scotia, so I came over today. We're about 40 members in Canada, US, and Chile, so spread across the Americas. And this is really essentially what we do. And we're very proud of what is before you today. St. John is particularly great pleasure to work with because this city does have a long history in this area and a lot of expertise. And that's very much reflected in this timeline, the fact that there's already an EV charging strategy installed in 2015, the fact that it was one of the first municipalities to join the Partners for Climate Protection program. So there's a long history that this work really builds on and reflects. In 2021, the city joined the Race to Zero, which is a UN-led effort to hit net zero by 2050. That was the impetus for this project. In, I think, this generation of climate action planning, it's understood that it is really whole city planning, and it touches on everything that you do, all the services you offer, all the policies you undertake, all of the investments that you make. And so that means it's comprehensive city planning. And so that's why this project is particularly complex, because we need to understand what's happening in each of these different dimensions in land use and transportation, economic development, and so on. And so all of those policies are reflected, and projects and plans are reflected within Act SJ. It is a community plan, so it's not just about city. It's also about everyone else in the community, businesses, citizens, and so on. And that's the lens that the overall effort takes. So how do we get there? This is what a typical image of a decarbonization pathway looks like. On the y-axis, you have greenhouse gas emissions. Your starting point is in the far left corner. You have time, and then you have emissions projected out in a reference scenario. What would happen if no other policies are implemented? And then you get these wedges, we call them. And each one of those represents reductions that occur over time. And those can occur as a result of policies or programs or investments. The gray area is the remaining emissions. So that chart kind of sums up the whole visual of what a pathway for a city looks like. That's not St. John's. I'm going to show you St. John's in a bit later. This is the process that we use to get there. There's a technical analysis, which is about building a computer model of the city and how everyone moves around in all the buildings and what equipment are in the buildings and so on. And then there's an engagement process, and those two pieces dance in an interactive way over the course of the project to get to the end. In terms of engagement, we did pre-engagement interviews, which helps shape the form of the engagement. There's public meetings and community working group. And the community working group members were very active and very thoughtful in helping to shape this plan. So thank you to all of those who are listed in the first page, or the first pages of the report. And also the public who participated as well. So some of the key challenges for St. John in particular, obviously emissions from industry really dominate. I'll show that in a little bit more detail in a sec. A reliance on fossil fuels for transportation and buildings, which is also an opportunity on the flip side. The last really significant challenge is local inequities or really poverty, which is relatively high in St. John. That is also an opportunity because this is probably one of the most significant moves that you can undertake to reduce household costs. So it can have a really significant impact on particular low-income households. Model results. So we use this computer model to represent the city in current conditions, and then we build scenarios out into the future, what might happen if. And we represent it all spatially, so we're showing where houses are in space, where buildings are, how people move around. All of this is tracked within a large computer model of the city. And that basically allows us to have the levers that we can say, well, what happens if we put in a bunch of heat pumps, or if we retrofit homes, or if we add a bus here, or active transportation pathways here. So we can start to sort of pull those levers to see what impacts they might have and how much it might cost. This is what we get for St. John, one of the many charts you'll see in the report. The business as usual scenario along the top. St. John starts at 4.8 million tons of emissions in 2020. that more or less flatlines out until 2050 because of various federal policies and provincial policies that are underway. Despite an increase in population, the emissions don't go up. The target is the blue line that goes down to net zero, saving about 4.7 million tons or 4,700 kilotons by 2050. That's a lot of tons. In St. John, most of the emissions are from heavy industry, as I mentioned, and you can see what that looks like here. About 3.8 million tons are from heavy industry. And that's not unlike many other Canadian cities that we've worked with. For example, Edmonton with oil, Hamilton with steel, Thunder Bay with pulp mills. So it's not an unfamiliar situation for a Canadian city. But it's a significant challenge and opportunity because luckily, in St. John's case, in particular, Irving Oil is already plotting its course to net zero, which aligns with the city's objectives. Spoke to that one. So we also looked at the city without those industrial emissions. And without them, it's comparable on a per capita basis. So this is emissions per person to other cities like Moncton, Fredericton, and Victoria, more or less around 9 tons of emissions per person. So if you take away the big industry, it looks like many other Canadian cities. And this is again without industry. You can see a lot of the emissions are from transportation, which is orange, and then residential emissions, which is homes, obviously, and then commercial buildings is blue. And then waste is a much smaller amount, as is municipal emissions is very small. And there's industrial is light industrial, not heavy industrial. So the 6 big moves the city can undertake to reduce emissions are decarbonizing industry, which is a huge one, increased use of active and public transit, shifting to low emissions vehicles, electrifying and improving energy efficiency in buildings, generating renewable energy, and reducing waste. And there's many elements of these that are already underway in the city. So there's momentum, which is great. This is the wedge picture for St. John. You can see the big one there is greening or cleaning the electricity system, renewable energy system, which is dark blue. And other chunks are smaller. The colors are graduated because we looked at very specific policies and measures to show what that pathway would look like. I think it's kind of a beautiful chart. So how much will it cost? So we track the financial impacts of all of this. So if there's a heat pump installed, we add $6,000 or $8,000, depending on what kind of heat pump it is. If there's an EV, there's an incremental cost of an electric vehicle. So we track that year over year as we're implementing that scenario. So we can get a sense of what the total capital cost of making all that happen is over time. It's about $2 billion over 30 years, which is about $67 million per year, which is about 1% of St. John's, slightly over 1% of St. John's GDP. So that's the capital cost that would cost to decarbonize the city. The good thing is it generates more than that in energy cost savings, and there's also avoided carbon savings, so that there's a net benefit of $2.8 billion. So you spend $2 billion and you end up saving $2.8 billion over 30 years, which is a pretty exciting story. Not that it's necessarily easy to mobilize that $2 billion or $67 million a year, but if you can, there's a lot of benefit, a lot of upside. We look at that in a lot of detail, and you'll see more of that detail in the report. This shows it on an annual basis. The dark blue is the investments, yellow is the energy cost savings, and pink is the avoided carbon tax, which, if it makes it through the next federal election, is a significant benefit, significant avoided benefit. So implementation. So as this is a community plan, so it's not just about the city. We looked at what the city's role might be to make all of that happen, and you'll see in more detail what those strategies are in this slide and in the report. And there's some high-level recommendations, which I'm going to pass it to Samir to start to make all of those things happen.
Thanks, Drew. Thank you. So in front of you is the recommendation we're asking council to approve. One of them is to approve the City of St. John Community Energy Action Plan as indicated in Appendix A. Following this here, we want to continue moving forward with the Community Energy Action Plan with the implementation. So we're looking at in the future to establish we call it an ACT AJ Advisory Committee to oversee the implementation of this plan. And next one, we're looking at development, financial and resources to help us tell us the maximum, the costs required for us to implement some of the strategy which are led by the city of St. John. So we're looking at the 10-year capital on operating costs here, and we want to determine where's the cost coming from and how do you prioritize our project. The third one is the implementation of carbon budget. This is very important project here. We need to understand what the impact on any investment we do in St. John and maybe outside the community on our carbon footprint here. For example, if we decide to build a new building or upgrade any infrastructure or invest somewhere, what is the carbon impact on our carbon budget? This is very important. And the last one is very important here. We need to have the public buy-in into this here. So we need to establish some kind of framework and vehicle in order for us to track and monitor the implementation of the plan to see how we're doing or how much we are reducing our greenhouse gases and so on. So thank you very much for this. I'll leave you in this here, my favorite slide. Changes is required.
I love that. It's so true. Okay, I do have a couple of questions for probably both of you. So the first counselor up is Counselor Hickey. So over to you, Counselor Hickey.
Not so much a question, Your Worship, because there was so much detail, but congratulations and a thanks to the team. This is bold change. I think Council is excited to endorse. So with that, I'll move the recommendations.
Thank you. I'll take a seconder on it. Counselor Harris. Thank you. Oh, yeah, for sure. So Counselor Harris, over to you.
Thank you. So as the person who brought this motion it was my first motion I brought to council, I'm still shocked at the document that we have out of this. I couldn't imagine that motion, which really I understood had a lot of implications, would require such a monumental amount of work to create a document that's costed, that looks out 30 years and shows a cost benefit analysis and a modeling projection. And I just remember in that meeting when we were having those community meetings, looking up at everybody and almost feeling like I had to apologize, especially when you brought in the industry numbers. It was like, we're never going to get there. But this has made a very clear path that is sensible and clear. And I just really hope our community picks up on this, because you said it's a community action plan. Now our city action, our corporate plan is overperforming our goals. We're doing fantastic on that front. As a slide you showed, even as a per capita basis, our residents are producing less CO2 than even local cities like Fredericton and Moncton, which is amazing. But, this is going to take a lot of hands on deck. We were really glad to see Irving Oil there. We're really advantaged to have St. John Energy and you, Samir, and our team to be doing that. So thank you to both, and I'll be doing my best to try to get every person involved with this. But thank you. Yeah.
And I'll say thank you as well to both of you. Yul, it's nice to see you again. It's great to have this path formulated for us. And, we all know our roles now. And I think that's the important part of getting any job done, is for everyone to understand their roles. And so it's great to have, and it's something that I look forward to. I've always been interested in that. In fact, I had Ed out looking for a solar application on the roof, but I have a flat roof. Now here they said they haven't done a lot with the flat roofs, so anyways, maybe I'll do a wind terminal in my backyard. I don't know, we'll see. I'll have to get it rezoned maybe for that. But no, I appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks for all the work. Great kit. I'll need to read that a couple of times to really absorb it all, because there's a lot in there, but no, it's great to have. So I will wrap it up, and I'll ask, I've got a mover and I've got a seconder, and I have no more questions, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? 100%. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is item 13.1, a report from Public Safety Committee on speed cushion traffic calming trial update and path forward.
Councillor Hickey, I'm sending this over to you for intro.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. At our December 6th meeting, Public Safety Committee, results of a traffic calming initiative presented public requests for the city to address excessive speeding on our neighborhood streets continue to grow, and certainly beyond our ability to address them in conventional ways, which kind of really brought this evidence-based, pretty common sense solution around sticking to a sentiment that slower vehicle speeds result in safer streets for everybody in our community. In doing so, we completed a traffic calming pilot project where a particular type of traffic calming measure known as speed cushions were installed on McNamara Drive in East St. John. With installation of these speed cushions, the average speed of vehicles decreased by 9 kilometers an hour, resulting in over 25% reduction in risk of collisions. All 3 emergency services and St. John Transit reported no undue impacts with the installation of the speed cushions, a benefit over the more traditional speed hump. As a result of the overwhelming success of this trial, the city staff received support from the Public Safety Committee and now seeks council's endorsement to move this initiative from a pilot project to an annual program where speed cushions would be installed on more streets each year. You'll see the recommendation here to reduce the speed limit on McNamara Drive as well from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour was also endorsed by our committee and is being sought in principle by Common Council to approve this evening. However, it will be officially considered through a recommended traffic bylaw amendment within the next month or so here at Council. With 2 recommendations to Common Council, Director O'Reilly is present as well. If there are any questions, I just add too that this does not solve all of our traffic calming issues. This is not the be all end all of our traffic calming strategy. It's got to become a consistent lens on our infrastructure decisions. We've got to continue to challenge the way we build streets. The way we build streets drives better traffic calming solutions than non-permanent ones like this always. And it's really our job to make sure that our infrastructure continues to be people first infrastructure. And that's really what we ultimately want to get out of this. This is part of that solution, but there are bigger ones at hand. So I'll leave it with that. If there are any questions for
Councillor, I'll get you to read the 2 the recommendations, and then you can move that, and then we'll get a seconder on it, and we'll open the floor up.
We'll read the recommendations. Just 1 second, Your Worship. The recommendations are that Public Safety recommends that Council approve an amendment to the city's traffic bylaw that reduces the speed limit of McNamara Drive to 40 kilometers an hour and endorse that the expedited traffic calming initiative using speed cushions move from a pilot project to an annual program, and that the 3 deviations from the traffic calming policy detailed in this report continue for the year 2024.
Okay, I'll take a seconder on that. The deputy. Okay, on the question, Councillor Harris, over to you.
Thank you. This is a question for Director O'Reilly. Through you, Mayor, to Director O'Reilly. Can you tell me, from what I understand, the original policy that's guiding some of our outcomes here and some of our actions is quite antiquated. I mean, it's 11 years old now. And that's not necessarily a bad thing just because it's old. Doesn't mean it's not good, of course. But I'm wondering, because this is a real opportunity to exercise, this kind of pure governance lane of trying to dovetail what we just saw in Act SJ, which is one of these pretty major plans that is going to trickle down and impact other things and relies quite a bit on transportation. So I guess the hard part I have is that I've seen pretty different, let's say more dramatic approaches taken by other cities, and I'm well aware we don't have an unlimited budget. But I'm just wondering about this process here and calling this a major traffic calming project. Is going forward in this direction with so many complaints that we've seen in a call for traffic calming in neighborhoods, is going forward in this specific direction the best use of our time when we could try to go back and update our policy around 2012 to dovetail with more nuanced, more, recent changes to planning, to even, like I said, Act SJ, that requires more calming, because we know as we calm traffic, people drive less. They'll choose to walk because it's frustrating to get out. And it allows us to really go down pathways of saying, okay, well, this is going to be a more localized community. We're driving toward that. It's not there yet. That aligns with our strategic plan, which talks about that 15-minute city concept. So, yeah, I'm just having a hard time seeing this direction, which seems to be this is a baseline response from policy that's from 2012 and how it properly dovetails with all this nuance, I guess. It's a long question. I apologize.
Sure. I think I get it though. So 2012, I'm one that helped develop that traffic calming policy. It was really our first step in terms of that approach. But that was, you're right, in 2012. The steps we've taken since are certainly significant. And the biggest one is Move SJ itself. And so Move SJ came after the traffic calming policy, which of course focuses more broadly on safely moving people around the city. A piece of that is making sure that people are driving the appropriate speed limit, and a piece of that is different traffic calming initiatives to implement on the street. Specific to the policy, we actually completed as part of Move SJ a review of the 2012 policy. And the consultants, again, independent consultants, came back and said, you have a great traffic calming policy. Here's a couple of improvements to it. One of them actually was the speed cushions, which we're now implementing on McNamara Drive. But we did do that review of the traffic calming policy as part of Move SJ in recent years. But as I said, Move SJ itself is a holistic view of moving people around safely around our community. Making sure people are driving the speed limit, which takes different traffic calming measures, is a small piece of that overall puzzle. Let's make sure we got the right infrastructure in the right places. Implementing broader safety initiatives, such as through the road safety strategy, to Councillor Hickey's indication around making sure our streets are designed properly and working on more narrow streets. That's all part of it. So this project is really, we have citizens around the community that I guess at some point they can't wait any longer for action. And some of these implementations are going to take, reconstructing a road is millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And until we get to the stage where we can start, reconstructing a road, what are we going to tell our citizens? Just wait longer and longer?
Yeah.
So we identified this solution. And for example, Halifax has started implementing this a year before we did, the traffic speed cushions. And they're very effective. So this is just one, small solution we can do and implement on many streets to help alleviate some of the concerns we have around our community until the time when we have the funding in place to implement some of the more strategic, broader, more costly implementation. So it's a piece of that puzzle, but at the same time, I believe we have to do more than, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to have the same results. So we really believe we have to do something different, and this is a step that's going to cause more benefits to more citizens around St. John.
Thanks. Mayor, I have a follow-up question, but if there's other questions.
Yeah, you go ahead, and then I'll go to Councillor Radwan.
Okay.
If you like.
Okay, thank you. So really quickly, I hear what you're saying. We have to do more. This idea of modular traffic calming, we're talking about, a friend of mine even that I know who's very passionate about this. Brian Wilson's very active. He's a resident. He's a very intelligent guy, and he does a lot of work trying to point to better solutions. I don't always know how to dovetail some of those more modular style traffic calming initiatives that we see in other cities, which are moving roads without rebuilding the road, right? Changing the flow so that it requires slowing. I know, and I guess I would say is do you see this initiative in installing these speed bumps, humps, whatever we call them, getting us closer to being able to use more modularized responses as funding becomes available? Or would our policy prohibit use of more modular style traffic calming solutions?
No, we're going to continue to look for all different solutions around the community to get people to slow down. The thing I have to remind council as well is I don't have a large team, right? So if we start looking at a whole bunch of different options, getting bogged down in a lot of processes, designing different solutions, it's going to take more time.
Yeah.
And like I said, the number of citizens I talk to, and I know different council members talk to, that are really concerned with speeds in their streets, we can take a long approach of trying to find different solutions for different streets, or we can narrow in on one that's proven effective in other communities. We've proven it worked in McNamara Drive. It's reduced the average speed 9 kilometers per hour. Collisions risk has reduced with 25%. Let's mirror that and start implementing that around our community. But this is not to stop other initiatives or other ways to make our streets safer. It's just until we get those other solutions in place and find other solutions, let's get some action for our community and get slower vehicles on more of our streets. And so it's just that step of being mindful of resources we have, trying to implement effective solutions, and that's what this is. But it doesn't preclude our continued efforts to try to find other ways to make our streets safer, which again is MoveSJ. We've already been to council a few times. We'll be back within the next month or so to finalize that document, and there's 50-something recommendations in there that's all aimed at making our streets safer, and traffic calming is only one piece of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Director O'Reilly. So I have a couple of questions, but mostly for the sake of the public. I'm just wondering if first you can kind of let me know, what is the safe speed to go over a speed cushion?
So they're designed, again, for lower than 50 kilometers an hour. So the ones we installed on McNamara are designed for a 30 kilometer an hour speed.
Okay.
You design them anywhere from 30 to 40 kilometers an hour. People can drive safely faster than that, but what it does is create that uncomfort level by driving fast in 40 kilometers an hour. It's still safe to drive faster, but people will drive slow because it's comfortable to drive slower.
Sure. I'm not sure if you can change your slide to the one that talks about the speed volume before and after the speed cushion. So this is one of those things that I'm a little concerned about. No, the next one, I think, the one that talks about it being 55, 86 speed, that was a traffic volume before speed cushions, then 2023 after, that was like a weekly volume.
Okay,
yeah. So I'm just wondering, have we gotten any inquiries about changing the speed on, like, say, Pauline or Summit or Lakeview since this? Because I'm just thinking they must be taking the other roads.
Yeah. I don't recall getting any requests from those streets after the process was complete, but what's important for Lakeview Drive, I think, is that overall the community is safer because people are driving slower on it.
Yeah.
Now, no doubt, because, as the numbers show, people are using other streets besides McNamara to get to where they're going. So there's a cumulative increase in other streets, but again, a negative growth on McNamara. So overall, it's safer for the community, but some have certainly been displaced. Again, and I know I've mentioned this to council many times before, is that we get these requests from citizens to slow people down or to reduce volumes, but it's going to have knock-on effects, and this shows it. When you do a traffic calming project on one street, it's likely going to cause impacts on another.
Well, I have had
one of the future projects we're planning for next year is to implement these on Douglas Avenue. Now, the great thing about Douglas Avenue is I believe it's as much about the volumes that travel on Douglas Avenue versus getting on Chelsea Drive, which is a proper arterial street. So certainly implementation on Douglas Avenue, if we get similar results where vehicles actually get on Chelsea Drive as opposed to Douglas Avenue, that's going to be a significant improvement to Douglas. But no, you're right. No doubt some motorists on McNamara have chosen other streets to get around it.
I haven't had like a significant amount of complaints like with McNamara. It was crazy. But Lakeview a little bit. I think people are worried about the elementary school there though. So I have a follow-up question, but I'll come back, Mayor.
Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, Tim, you just hit the nail on the head because I was going to use Douglas Avenue as an example for these speed cushions. I mean, I think they're great. Alone, they're not the magic bullet, as you say, but they're certainly a good tool. And I'm not sure if you have the answer to this, but do we know how close we are to being able to put cameras on our intersections and roads where there's a lot of speeding?
Yeah, so that's currently at the provincial level. I know the Motor Vehicle Act has been changed, but the province is currently working on the regulations. I understand those are going to come out in the spring. So once those come out in the spring, then we'll be back to council to indicate what the implications would be of moving forward with red light cameras or speed enforcement using electronic equipment. So, but really it's with the province completing the regulations before any community in New Brunswick can consider those devices.
Yeah, I hear they're really effective, so, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan?
Thanks, Your Worship. No questions, just a couple of comments to the motion, I guess. Yeah, let's get at her. Certainly, we've had the traffic calming policy and big hunk of move SJ for a long time. And while we continue to look for opportunities to, when we're doing streets, to design complete streets and make all those things work, I know when we've talked about reducing speed limits, I've been pretty consistent saying we can't just reduce speed limits. The law-abiding people slow down, and it will slow people down more than the speed limit signs. Emergency services are looked after, and we'll be able to continue. It's a solution that's in the handbooks and has been tried in other cities. And I have to say it's financially doable to do a fair amount in a short period of time. So I think it's a great first step to doing stuff out of a plan so that the plan's just not sitting there. We're into the implementation. So thanks to your staff, Tim, and the work you're doing on this. Let's get her done.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Hickey next. Over to you, Councillor.
I can let Councillor Radwan finish her comments, Your Worship.
Okay.
If I can just offer a quick conclusion.
Councillor Radwan, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, Director O'Reilly. There was, I think since we've been in office, there was some curbing that was put in on Thorne Avenue as a traffic calming measure right next to Superstore. Is that something that would also be part of the plan? I was thinking about budget and everything. Is that also something that would be commonly used going forward?
Well, that particular implementation on Thornton Avenue had really nothing to do with speed calming. We worked with the railway to ensure that rail crossing remains safe. The combination of our work on the road and what they can do at the rail gates of that location. So again, that particular solution really had nothing to do with speed control. It was all about making sure that particular rail crossing remains safe for the community. We do have an active application with the Federal Rail Safety Improvement Program to gain the funding to install that permanently at that location. But again, very different causation to implement that as opposed to being a solution for traffic calming. But that type of scenario of putting medians on roadways, again, is going to be used as part of different capital jobs around the city. I know Broad Street, I believe we're looking at the center median along a section of Broad Street to, again, cause that narrowing effect. So medians on the side of the road and middle of the road will be used in other applications, but that was a very different purpose for that median on Thornton Avenue.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. I mean, this is one of the big things that was a shock to me when I get in office, how many calls I get on traffic calming. So this is great news. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks to Tim and his team. I just offer a brief public safety update on another quick matter if I can.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this, and then I'll come back to you for that.
Sure.
Okay. So this has been great, Tim, to have this. I'm a big walker, so I'm happy to see the speed limits being reduced on some of the streets to pedestrianize, make pedestrians feel a little more comfortable. And as you know, uptown, we have a lot of those bump outs in the uptown just to reduce the area of street that a pedestrian would have to cross. But a lot of people park on those uptown. So I'm saying to everyone out there who's driving a car, those are sidewalks, and don't park on them, because I use them. And then for anyone who's been taking physics in grade 11, and I've always harped about this, force equals mass times acceleration. So if we reduce the acceleration, we reduce the force. You talk about that in your kit. You know, you're less likely to be injured more significantly with a reduced force, and that's impacted by the acceleration or the mass of the vehicle. So if you're on a bike, that's better too. So appreciate that. It's great news. I love to see us moving forward in this direction. It was great to have Smear's report there. We talked about increasing, active transportation. This supports it. So it's all aligned. Thanks so much. So do I have the motion on the floor? Yes, I do have the motion on the floor. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Councillor Hickey, your public safety, last item.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just quickly, just for way of public update, on the evening of January 6th, emergency crews were called to a large fire in an encampment under the viaduct around 8 p.m. Fire crews were able to knock down the fire quickly. However, there was significant damage, as many of us know. One person was transported to the regional hospital with significant burns and has unfortunately passed away from his injuries. A significant thanks go out to St. John Fire, St. John Police, Ambulance New Brunswick, and as well as the significant community groups and folks in the community for their assistance at the scene. Just want to reiterate what I had mentioned at our last meeting of council around our public safety homelessness strategy. This council is committed to working to end homelessness in this community. As over 250 people continue to try and heat themselves outdoors, more fires will happen. With this loss of life, I want to renew our call to the province to step up on housing. Our neighborhoods have become the front line of the housing crisis. There is no dignity in homelessness, either for the folks living in it or the neighborhoods they occupy. With the special weather advisory coming in this week, 250 people sleep in unsafe conditions in our community. We don't have the shelter capacity to house them. We need consistent planning, and our job is to keep advocating and support where we can. I want to renew our call to continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next on the agenda is 15.1. It's a letter from Harold Wright with respect to 250 St. John Wing RCAFA Inc. With a request for a contribution and a crosswalk painting. And the staff recommendation is to refer this to the CAO for follow-up.
So, approve the recommendation. That's from the deputy. I'll take a seconder on that. Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is 15.2, Livable St. John requesting to present on residential impact on AIM, and there's a staff recommendation to approve request to present at a meeting of Public Safety Committee.
I'll take a mover on that. The deputy and Councillor Hickey on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is a letter from New Brunswick Society of Retired Teachers, St. John Branch, with a request for a proclamation. A draft of it is included, and the recommendation is to approve the request.
I'll take a motion on that. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is from Committee of the Whole, and it's a recommendation, it's item 17.1, and a recommendation with respect to COVID-19 policy statement resolution. The resolution that is resolved the below COVID-19 policy statement adopted by Council on March 21st, 2022 be rescinded in full.
Okay, and take a motion on that. Move it. The deputies are going to move that. I'll take a Councillor Redwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sullivan opposed. Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
And Your Worship, just for the record, the second part to that motion was that as a condition of employment with the City of St. John, employees hired on or after March 21st, 2022 are required to show proof of full vaccination against COVID-19 or valid medical certificate exempting them from the vaccine. And that has been rescinded in full now.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is 17.2, and it's another recommendation from Committee of the Whole with respect to transfer of ownership recycling totes. The resolution would be that Council authorize sale of assets to Circular Materials on terms and conditions as presented to Committee of the Whole at its meeting on January 8th, 2024, and that Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign any documents necessary to effect the transaction.
Councillor Sullivan moving that. Take a seconder on it. The deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. That's it. Well, that's it for us. Councillor Lowe is moving that we adjourn the meeting. I'll take a seconder, Councillor Hickey. Before we go, I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone, 2024. Wishing you a safe, healthy, happy, and some peace in the new year. Thanks for watching. And thanks to staff for all your participation. Look forward to another year of really ramping up. See you later.